Hey, it's a Philly thing. Shout out to my people. Green, silver, black, and white. Always repping for my Eagles. Hey, welcome to the podcast. We gon' keep it real. Get it hype when the team stepping on the field. We all we got. We all we need. Philadelphia Eagles, lock in with me. It's a Philly thing. You ready? Let's go.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Whoever you are out there who are watching the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast, thank you for joining on. Today's episode, ladies and gentlemen, is an overall view of the Philadelphia Eagles this upcoming season. We're going to be talking about potential starting lineups. I'm going to talk about some of the coaches on each side of the ball, what they will do for Jalen Hurts on the offense this season. And then we're going to go over some of the defensive guys. Really not many question marks there as training camp is going to be starting. I mean, my goodness, it's July 1. I'm recording this at 9 p.m. on a Wednesday. So July 1, July 2, whenever you are watching this episode, we're about 27 to 26 days away from training camp. It's come just like that. And it has been a crazy, crazy offseason in terms of just speculation, drama, stories, all that jazz in regards to the Philadelphia Eagles. And it's an important season because it's a make or break year for the Philadelphia Eagles, particularly key figures on the offense. I mean, question marks with the offensive line and their health, question marks about general discussion in regards to the quarterback and offensive coaching staff and even head coach philosophy. I mean, we have had discussions about whether or not the Eagles are going to move on from Jalen Hurts, and he just won a Super Bowl 2 years ago in 2024. So it's a little bit of a wild discussion, and the overall changes that they have made in this offensive coaching staff, the scheme, and the personnel have been drastic, to the point where you have to almost wonder, are the expectations of this team projecting to even win a lot of ball games too high, or going to a Super Bowl being too high? I've heard some fans think that we're going to go back to the Super Bowl with the new offensive mindset and coach, considering the defense. And I've heard people tell me they're not going to win more than 5 games. Or, I'm kind of in between that. I'm thinking we're a 9 to 10 win ball team. I think we get to the playoffs, maybe as a wild card. And if we make a run, we make a run. That's kind of where I'm at in terms of the talent on this team. But more about that in just a few moments. But before we get into all of that stuff, let me just introduce everybody to the show one more time. This is the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. I'm your host, Asif Badi, and like you, I am a Birds fan who talks about the Birds, only the Birds, and nothing but the Philadelphia Eagles. So please do us a favor here, help us grow this channel organically by shooting this video a thumbs up, commenting your thoughts in the comment section below, and subscribing to the channel. Also, check us out on audio platforms such as Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and leave a 5-star review, because in the end, it does not cost you a damn thing to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We appreciate your support on the opposite side of the camera and on the opposite side of the airwaves. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about this Philadelphia Eagles roster and offense, as I believe this is going to be a make or break season for the offense and some of the key decision makers on this offensive coaching staff. So without further ado, let's get right into it. New graphic here, ladies and gentlemen. The Philadelphia Eagles starting offensive lineup, or potential starting offensive lineup. Okay, obviously you have quarterback Jalen Hurts, who is coming off a year with Kevin Patullo, where it was met with a lot of scrutiny and a lot of discussions about how awful and putrid and static the offense is. Saquon Barkley, another example of a guy who just 2 years ago was the catalyst for this team and this offense, and one of our Super Bowl titles in our franchise's history, rushing for 2,000 yards, setting the single season NFL record for rushing yards in a season, behind the Great Wall of Philly. And last season was a little bit of a disappointment in terms of effectiveness running, even though I think he had about 1,200 yards. Devonta Smith in the new role as wide receiver 1. many people believe, including myself, believe he could take on the mantle of being a true wide receiver one going against number one corners because we saw him do it in his rookie campaign. But with no A.J. Brown here, all of a sudden, all eyes on Devonta Smith. And what does that mean for the offense going forward? That's things we're going to talk about in later episodes and maybe a little bit today. But I'm telling you, losing A.J. Brown is a big deal for Devonta Smith. It's a big deal for Jalen Hurts, and it's a big deal for the offense in general, okay? I know we like to crap on A.J. Brown for his time here towards the end, especially in the 24, and especially last season where he did not end the season very well with a lot of pouting and drop balls and things like that. But you know what? Like I've mentioned in episodes past, he's the best wide receiver we have had in franchise history, in my opinion, in terms of his tenure in Philadelphia, what he meant to winning, what he made as an impact player on this offense, the presence that he brought. I saw A.J. Brown in person at the they had like the live practices for the Autism Foundation that they, do a lot of work with. That is a linebacker playing wide receiver. That is a big dude. And we traded him to the New England Patriots, yes, for a first-round pick, but that guy's presence as a wide receiver, being out on the X, it is tough to replicate and replace a physical presence like that in Philadelphia and on an NFL football team. It's why when you get a guy like that, they really want the ball, and they want it often because they're going up against smaller defensive backs that are just not the size of A.J. Brown. Now, Devonta Smith, while he doesn't have the size, he makes up for it in his ability to go out and route run, to be savvy, understand spacing, catch radius, reliable catching, big moments catching. I mean, like, Devonta Smith's a stud. Okay, he's a superstar wide receiver, in my opinion. I think he's got all the tools to be a wide receiver one, and he could prove that this season. May not show it in the numbers. I think he's going to get 11 to 1,200 yards this year. I don't think it's like elite wide receiver one numbers, but he's going to be impactful for the Philadelphia Eagles nonetheless. Mekhi Lemon is wide receiver two, and I know Dontavian Wicks is also on the roster. We'll talk about him in just a moment, but Mekhi Lemon's the first-round pick. We took him out of, this draft class at the number 20 pick or the 22 pick, whichever one we took it at. Regardless, the point being is that's all semantics, and that's really all like not necessary details. Point is they took him in the first round and traded A.J. Brown afterwards. Okay, so you knew where they were going. You knew what they wanted to do. This kid, a lot of people like him. I like the kid. I think he's got game. Will it translate to the NFL? I'm not 100% sure. Will he be able to get the ball, especially if he's in the slot? I don't know. That's not something that Jalen Hurts has done throughout his career. However, this offense with Sean Mannion and this new coaching staff here may help Jalen Hurts say, hey, you know what? You got to really utilize the whole field here. So that way you can make it easier for yourself and develop a short passing game here. Mekhi Lemon can be the guy that helps develop the short passing game for you and get some yak yardage that A.J. Brown potentially would. This would probably replace A.J. Brown's yak production in conjunction with other receivers on the roster. And then lastly, Dallas Goedert, the inconvenient truth. Although last year he was pretty healthy and he had a career year in touchdowns, one of the few bright spots on the Eagles offense. So again, they chose him over A.J. Brown to help utilize the middle of the field, the blocking game. He had a little bit of a down year in terms of run blocking, but Dallas Goedert, a comfortable target for Jalen Hurts, a reliable target when on the field, and is a guy that has a total game at tight end. Okay. Now he is a little bit longer in the tooth in terms of age, and you might only get a year or two out of him, but brings me to my next point here. The next group of contributors potentially on this offense, and that's why we drafted a guy like Eli Stowers in the future to help replace Dallas Goedert. And if we know anything about this West Coast offense, or as I'm going to be calling it, the Midwest offense until further notice, what they like to do, you see it with the Packers, you see it with the San Francisco 49ers, you see it with the Rams, you see it with, the Vikings and T.J. Hawkinson. They utilize the tight end or a lot of multiple tight end sets, and open up the middle of the field and attack linebackers. That's one of the keys to this offense, getting the running game going and attacking in the middle of the field with big, lanky targets. Eli Stowers certainly fits that bill. Now, he's not a blocking tight end because he is a quarterback converted to tight end. So he understands spacing. He's got length. He's got the ability to catch the ball. And he won a pretty prestigious tight end award in college. So that does mean something. I think it was the John Mackey Award, right? It shows he can play. Now, can he be an elite tight end at the next level in terms of being able to have a total game in blocking, run support, route running down the field, catching, all that jazz? That's yet to be seen. But I like the upside. I like the idea. A lot of people loved Eli Stowers coming out of this draft at tight end. The Eagles technically got a steal with this kid, right? So I'm high on Eli Stowers. I'm more of a wait and see type of guy, but I do like the skill set, and I think he can be a really big contributor for us down the road. Tank Bigsby is running back too. Okay. Last season was one of the other bright spots, in my opinion, and one of the people who I thought should have gotten the ball more, quite frankly, when he came to Philadelphia. But people are going to be stubborn and say, no, you got Saquon Barkley. Why not he get the ball? Well, you know what? You got running backs here for a reason. You use them all. Okay. The guy was getting like damn near 5 yards a carry in Philadelphia last season in an abysmal offense. I think if he got the ball a little bit more, you might have seen the offense pick up a little bit of little steam here, so to speak. So I'm curious to see what Tank Bigsby will do in this offense. I don't know how much he's going to get the ball. Okay. I think they really want to try to milk the Saquon Barkley juice for what it's worth, because more likely than not, he's got like a year or two left in Philadelphia. So I think they really want to try to squeeze the juice for whatever it's worth. And you may not see a lot of Tank Bigsby runs this upcoming season unless, that was really hollow, knock on wood, Saquon Barkley gets hurt. And lastly, Dontavian Wicks, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, however you want to rank him. He's a guy that's been in the system before because he came from the Green Bay Packers just like Sean Mannion. So it's a guy who knows the route tree, He knows the language. He knows the lexicon. He knows the cadence. He knows what you need to do as the play develops. If there's a scramble drill, how to get around. Dontavian Wicks is a solid player, okay? He's not a superstar wide receiver, but he's got a good skill set. He's not bad at anything per se, okay? And, I know some Packer fans, they like the kid. Right? They thought he was a good player. And when he was there, I mean, everybody likes the Green Bay Packers wide receivers. He was one of those guys that people just liked. Okay. Got a decent game. He's really good at wide receiver 2, can run the tree, good skill set in terms of catching the ball. I mean, he's just not a bad player. Okay. So having a familiarity with the offense is going to help. I think he's going to quickly rise as wide receiver 2 at some point. I put Mekhi Lemon there on the potential starting lineup just because he was the first round pick. But more likely than not, don't be surprised if Dontavian Wicks is the guy that you see out there at wide receiver 2. And at least early on in the season, don't be surprised if he's the guy that makes a lot more plays than not compared to guys like Dallas Goedert or guys like Mekhi Lemon, or in the passing game, Saquon Barkley, right? Devonta Smith's going to get his. I think Dontavian Wicks, he's going to be the next guy that's going to eat at least the early part of the season. So I do like his skill set. I like what he brings. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's go now to the offensive line, as that's one of the other big question marks on this football team. The Philadelphia Eagles, Great Wall of Philly, ladies and gentlemen, had a rough season last year due to injury, due to disappointing play, but primarily because of the injury bug. Landon Dickerson and Cam Jurgens were the guys that really, really struggled and looked like a shell of themselves. Jordan Mailata, again, still an elite left tackle in this league. Didn't have the greatest year last season, but, it's one of those, you're going to have seasons where you're going up and down and inconsistencies and stuff, but for the most part, elite tackle play that we've had. And when Lane Johnson's out on the field, what can we say other than that he's just a Hall of Fame tackle and that he's a superstar and to this day is just an elite player, right? And then Tyler Steen, I actually liked what he did last season. I think a lot of people are hard on Tyler Steen, but I think he's kind of showing that he's got some game in him and he played pretty well at right guard last season. One of the bright spots, I think, on this offensive line for sure. I thought he was better than Landon Dickerson last year and Cam Jurgens last year. Obviously, that bar is really low, but Tyler Steen played good ball. You didn't leave a game saying, wow, Tyler Steen stunk majority of the time. You looked at it and you said, you know what? He played good. He didn't play bad. And the right guard has been a revolving door in Philadelphia. You've seen it with Isaac Seumalo. You saw it with Cam Jurgens when Jason Kelsey was here. Then we put Mekhi Becton in here, and now we have Tyler Steen here. So it's been a revolving door, and it's one of those positions that in Philadelphia that they don't seem to necessarily believe is a tough one to replace. But having a guy like Tyler Steen there as a staple, you have all 5 guys coming back that were here last season. I think it's a positive sign. And then you got some depth pieces here. You obviously have like Markel Bell, you have Micah Morris. So there's a lot of guys that they drafted and some guys here on the roster that can make a contribution potentially down the line. Fred Johnson's another one of those guys too, who's that swing tackle that we all love in Philadelphia. But can this offensive line be healthy? Can this offensive line pick up the new scheme and the new running attack that they're going to implement in this West Coast offense, or as I like to call it, the Midwest offense? Okay, that's the biggest question mark in terms of the offensive line. The wide receivers, we know, hey, can they understand the language? Can they understand the route tree? Because again, NFL wide receivers, the route tree, no matter where you go, is the same. Quarterback plays and concept are generally the same. All these things are generally the same, except the offensive line here, they've never really blocked this West Coast style type of scheme. They've been a power run, inside zone, center motion type of blocking. It was a unique running attack and a unique blocking scheme in Philadelphia that Jeff Stoutland brought. And now they're completely overhauling it and running a different scheme that, yes, most of the NFL runs, but it's a scheme and it's a concept that I don't believe any of these guys, Mailata, Dickerson, Jurgens, Steen, Johnson, I don't think any of these guys have run this particular scheme in their careers, or at least maybe since college. So this is going to be a very, very unique season for this offensive line. How quickly will they be able to pick up their play, and how quickly will they be able to pick up the scheme to translate into a potential playoff run? That's yet to be seen. We don't know the answer to that question, which now brings me to the next group of people, the offensive coaching staff, ladies and gentlemen, one that we've all been waiting for. I shouldn't say that. You know my point here. The offensive coaching staff here with Sean Mannion, Nick Sirianni, Chris Cooper, Parks Frazier is the quarterbacks coach. Now listen, I like Sean Mannion. Okay, I don't believe he is in a spot where he could be totally ridiculed or be in a spot where he's in Guam in terms of play calling. He was a former quarterback in the NFL. He did play in this league. He did have tutelage under Sean McVay and was a student of this offense. So being able to communicate this to Jalen Hurts, I think, is an important skill set. And you also have Andy Dalton on the starting, I shouldn't say the starting lineup. You have Andy Dalton in the quarterback room along with Tanner McKee and Cole Payton, right? I think Andy Dalton being in the room is an important thing for Jalen Hurts and the rest of the quarterbacks there. Sean Mannion's a guy who everyone in Green Bay raved about. Like, they love them. Like, I know somebody who's a Green Bay Packer fan, and I'm pretty sure they don't like that he's gone from the building, right? Even Matt LaFleur didn't love that Sean Mannion is gone from the building. One of his specialties, I should say, Sean Mannion, that is being able to coach the quarterback on fundamentals, cleaning up the footwork, timing the release, understanding when to throw it, how to throw it, when the play should be 1, 2, you know what I'm saying? Going through the progressions quickly and in a timely manner. And hell, you can ask other quarterbacks. They don't necessarily go through 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. They look at the coverage and they say, okay, they're in a cover 3. All right, option 1 and option 2 are out. I got to look at 3 and 4 right off the rip. Boom. Then you make your target. And then all of a sudden you look like a really fast processor, right? these are the types of things that I think Sean Mannion can help Jalen Hurts with. If he can help him identify things at the line of scrimmage and develop a short passing game for Jalen Hurts, I think Jalen Hurts has plenty of arm and plenty of ability to operate an offense. Will it take some time? Will it be a struggle? Absolutely. I'm not sitting here saying this is going to be hitting the ground running, so to speak. This is going to take some time. This is going to take about 6 to 8 weeks of just like constant work and diligence to make this offense efficient and make this offense look aesthetically pleasing as compared to some of the other seasons that we've had in the past. Nick Sirianni is the head coach. We all know he's been a polarizing figure along with Jalen Hurts. Now, he is the architect of the risk-averse offense. He's the architect of the culture here. And I shouldn't say necessarily the architect of the culture because we know that's Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie, but he is the head coach in a period of success along with Jalen Hurts, him being the quarterback, where we have had as good of a run in franchise history as we have seen. Okay. And listen, I think there are times where he is a little bit of a dingus, where he is a little bit immature, where he is a little bit of a clown show on the sideline. But the results are the results. Okay. And yes, he's had an incredibly talented roster, but tell me a coach that hasn't won football games that doesn't have a talented roster. All coaches who win football games have talented rosters, okay? Like that is not going to be a knock that I'm going to put on a quarterback. It's not going to be a knock that I'm going to put on a head coach. His job is to manage egos, personalities, injuries, come up with a game plan. And when he does do that, can he get the guys ready to play? And do the results speak for themselves? Say what you want about Sirianni. The results speak for themselves, okay? 2 NFC title games in his tenure thus far, a Super Bowl title under his belt, been to the playoffs every single year, and for the most part, guys are generally healthy, okay? Now, he's had some missteps, and he's had the 2023 collapse. He's had the 2025 season where the whole offense in halves just looked terrible. This risk-averse offense, the press conference day one, the word salad that he spits every time he gets onto the microphone. All of these things are traits that are not necessarily likable about Nick Sirianni, but this is how the Philadelphia Eagles do business, and he's done business well for the Philadelphia Eagles. So I am not about to sit here and start ripping Nick Sirianni for his tenure in Philadelphia. Again, I fluctuate with him because there's some days where I think he knows what he's doing, and there's other days where I'm just like, my goodness, you could put a monkey back there and he'd do a better job. But that's neither here nor there. Enough about Sirianni, because there's going to be plenty of talk about him in the next coming weeks and as the season goes on. Next guy up is Chris Cooper. Chris Cooper is there as the offensive line coach in Philadelphia for the first time with Sean Mannion. And he came from Minnesota, running the same scheme that Kevin O'Connell has done and what the rest of these guys have done. And it's important to keep a guy like that in the building, number one. And number two, this kind of leads me to my next point in regards to the consistency of the offense here. What if the idea that Philadelphia is hiding here, or having here rather, what if the idea is this offense can be called by anybody because the scheme and the concepts are what other guys in the league are running? So, for example, the Atlanta Falcons are running the same thing. West Coast style offense. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, same idea. David Canales and the Carolina Panthers running the same exact thing. You go to the NFC West, San Francisco, Seattle, the Rams, Minnesota, the Green Bay Packers. I mean, to a lesser degree, the Detroit Lions, Chicago Bears. I mean, what other West Coast offense are there in the league? I mean, again, let's just leave it at that for now because that's all I can think about at the top of my head. Point being is,
You see how many teams are running a similar offense in the National Football League. So, if let's just say there is a successful year with Sean Mannion, and he gets a head coaching job somewhere, and he decides, hey, I'm going to bring Chris Cooper with me. All of a sudden, you don't have to do a whole overhaul on the offense because the foundational pieces of this West Coast, Midwest offense, so to speak, is already here. They've ran the system now. You have it in the building. Now all you need is a guy to come in and teach the offense once again in terms of lexicon and just reinforce things that you've already done. It's not going to be where you bring in a new coach who has to teach a new language that they're not used to, and that every player on the team has to learn a completely new scheme and a completely new language and a completely new cadence. Language is going to be the same, despite who the coach is, because they're implementing this particular scheme. So when we're talking about Chris Cooper, Sean Mannion, this is one of the feathers in Sirianni's cap. He's not necessarily somebody who's going to just be stubborn about certain ideas, at least in terms of being open to coaching staff changes, I should say, because he is stubborn about the risk-averse offense, which we could potentially still be running. But Sean Mannion, Chris Cooper, we were talking about with the offensive line scheme change. He's coming in. He had done a good job in Minnesota. Minnesota is one of the better offensive lines in football over the past couple of years. And then Parks Frazier is a quarterback's coach. Again, potential was with Shane Steichen with the Indianapolis Colts. As you can see in the graphic for my radio audience, you can't necessarily see that. But again, a quality coach has been there, done that. Could there be some sort of consistency here for Jalen Hurts at coaching? May not be necessarily individually, but in terms of schematics and in terms of philosophy, yeah, this could potentially be a way to develop and keep some sort of consistency in the building without having to completely change Nick Sirianni as head coach, without having to completely change all these guys at coaching staff. You could keep the scheme and build on it from here. That's going to be the cool thing about this particular football season. So the expectations for the offense, in my opinion, are going to be pretty predicated on whether or not Jalen Hurts can actually understand and compute this offense, right? Because that's really the main question. Jalen Hurts these last 4 years has had an up and down season. 2022 was that Super Bowl year. It was his second year starting. That was probably his best year of his career. 3,700 yards, 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He was the MVP, second runner in MVP. 2023 was his career year in terms of yardage and touchdowns thrown up to that point. This is also the high turnover year. This was the collapse year. So 3,800 yards, 23 touchdowns. He had 15 interceptions, not to mention the fumbles. And they kind of backed their way into the playoffs and got blown out by Tampa Bay. 2024 was the Super Bowl year. As you saw, 29-3, 18 touchdowns, 5 picks. Not really much in terms of the passing game was necessary because we were getting freaking 6 yards a clip or 5 yards a clip every time Saquon Barkley touched the damn football. So why in the hell would you go back to freaking throwing the football? You're going to run the damn ball if you're getting 5 to 6 yards a clip. That's what you do. And that's always been the goal for every offense, by the way. Running the ball, stopping the run, no turnovers, and playing good defense. That's what you do. Anywho, back to the graphic here. 2025 was his last season. Best touchdown to interception ratio, 3,200 yards throwing the ball. He had 25 touchdowns, a career high in passing touchdowns. And really, 3 or 4 of those interceptions came in one game. So as you see, Jalen Hurts is a little bit of an enigma in terms of whether or not he's an elite guy. Okay. He has the resume of a top 5 guy in terms of what he's done since he's come into the league. And the team accomplishments and the championship and the winning. That's top 5 resume stuff. However, and again, I'm a Jalen Hurts guy. I'm a Jalen Hurts fan. I can't point to a skill set outside of intangibles that you can look at and say, hey, that's elite. It's not elite ball placement. It's not elite arm strength. It's not elite accuracy. It's not elite processing. It's not elite ability to check plays at the line. Although I will say, I do think he's a really good decision maker of the football. I think that is an elite trait, and I think it's underrated with Jalen Hurts. I think he's a really smart player. So maybe you could put that in terms of elite. That's probably one of the more important characteristics of a quarterback, but not necessarily measurables that you can look at and say, hey, that guy's a top 5 guy, right? You see it with Josh. You see it with Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, to a lesser degree, Justin Herbert. I mean, Matthew Stafford for sure. To a lesser degree, like I said, Justin Herbert, Drake May. Guys like that you look at and you say, there's traits there that are elite, and the style of play is consistent. Jalen Hurts has not been consistent, to say the least, and that's been one of the knocks for Jalen Hurts. So, can this coaching staff, can the coaching staff here, can these 4 gentlemen make this man, Jalen Hurts, be a consistent quarterback in the NFL? If they can do that, Maron, you got a big time offense coming your way. You just do. There's too much talent here for it not to be that. Okay? Woo! I'll tell you, this is exciting stuff. And now let's talk about the next side of the ball, the defense. Okay, this one's going to be relatively quick because there's really not much discussion in terms of the defensive side of the football because it's Vic Fangio and the rest of the scheme here. Guys, look, the Eagles are just a defensive football team. That's what they are. They're led by this unit. It's the backbone of this team. It's where most of the talent is. Now, again, because of the moving parts that are going to be on this defense, this is a projected lineup here, okay? So I put Nolan Smith at end. Jalen Carter, obviously, there are trade talks about him, but, he more likely than not, he's going to be here. Jordan Davis, Moro Ojomo, and I put, Ty Robinson there because he was, after all, a 3rd, 4th round pick that we took last season, and I actually did like him coming out of college. Now, I know we have Brian Young, we have Ur Bernard, who, they like in Philadelphia, but that defensive line is going to be the key for setting the tone on defense because without these guys, without Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Moro Ojomo, and the rest of the defensive tackle unit and defensive end room playing well, linebackers are going to be put in a really tough spot, which brings me to the linebackers here with Jalix Hunt. Jihaad Campbell had a really solid rookie campaign. He played 8 games starting, and then the Kobe Dean came back. But we saw what he did. I thought he played really well. I liked what I saw as a 1st-round rookie. Going into year 2 with Vic Fangio in the 2nd year in the scheme with Bobby King. We're going to talk about those guys in a second. I am excited for Jihaad Campbell getting some starting reps here, see what he can do. And then Jalix Hunt, same thing. I'm excited to see what he can do in year 3. Okay. Zach Bond, what can we say other than he's just a stud? Ever since he's gotten to Philadelphia, he's been exceptional. Even last year, even though he played okay in terms of, again, it wasn't the splash year that it was in 2024, but he played pretty damn good last season. Like, there was not much to say about Zach Bond last year. He has good instincts. He knows how to play. Smart player, rangy. I mean, like, the guy does it all. Again, just a stud football player. Zach Bond is. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is another name who we're probably going to hear about in camp, and a name that we heard this offseason as, everyone in Philadelphia likes him. Again, his pops was here back in the early days of Philadelphia. He's got good instincts. He just knows how to play. He's a smart player. He knows where to be. And again, year 3 in this scheme with the same coaching and the same tutelage, he's just going to have a really good presence out there. When he's out there, he's not going to mess up per se. He may not be able to make certain plays because of his physical abilities, but he's always going to be in the right spot. He's always going to be a sure tackler. He's always going to be just smartly in the right position and not have any false steps, which is an important thing for a young player and an important thing in the NFL, having consistency like that. And for a coaching staff, having a guy who just knows where he is, you can go a long way with that. And then finally, the big trade off season we had in Jonathan Grenard. Now, we got him from Minnesota, obviously. We traded a couple 3rd-round picks during the draft to get him, and we paid him some big money. I like his presence in this locker room. I think he's a mature player. I think he's a grown-up adult player in this locker room. He's had some up and down years, and he's had some double-digit sacks years, and he's had some single-digit sacks years. Again, that move was not only to secure an edge who could play, but to have some veteran leadership in this back room, in this linebacker room and his defensive line room. Okay. Outside of Zach Bond, all these guys are young. I mean, look, Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Moro Jomo, Tyron, all young. You go to the next page. Jalex Hunt, Jihaad Campbell, Jeremiah Trotter, Small Monday. We didn't even talk about him. All young. Zach Bond and Jonathan Grenard are the veteran guys. And even Zach Bond, he only had, 2-3 years starting? So Jonathan Grenard has been a vet in this league. He's got like 6 to 8 years of starting in this league. He's a huge presence in this locker room, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So I like bringing him in. I like having an adult in the building on the defensive side of the ball outside of the coaching staff. It's a good move. And I think if he stays healthy, which for the most part I think he will, he can make a big presence here. He doesn't have to have big sack numbers because we've proven that we don't need a big sack. Let me rephrase that. We don't need a guy to have huge numbers in quarterback sacks. What we need is a guy to be able to set the edge, to play the run, and be consistent on the edge. I think Jonathan Grenard can do that in this scheme, right? And he's going to have a lot of help on the back end, too, because the defensive back room, ladies and gentlemen, woo-wee, this is the star unit in Philadelphia, okay? Quinyon Mitchell, stud. Dejean, stud. Tariq Woolen, he's got the physical ability, got the physical traits, and he's been wowing people in camp with his physical ability. He's a guy in Seattle who, a little bit of a knucklehead at times, yes, but when he plays, pretty damn good player. Still young, on a prove-it deal, yes, but like I mentioned before, it's tough to say no to physical talent. It just is. And Tariq Woolen's got physical ability. He's got incredible lankiness in terms of his ability to cover wide receivers. He's got really, really good make-up speed. So if he gets beat on a route, he's able to close and make up for the play. And being cornerback 2 with a front 7 projected that you have in Philadelphia right now, and then with Dejean on one side of the field and Quinyon Mitchell on the other, I feel pretty okay about Tariq Woolen. I mean, we dealt with the Dory Jackson. We had James Bradbury, again, who was good for one of those years, and then the second year was a little tough. I mean, and even the Dory Jackson last year wasn't terrible. Tariq Woolen's better than the Dory Jackson. Like, that's an upgrade, okay? Andrew Makuba, second-round pick from last season. Good player. I like him. Undersized. Proved it last year. Got hurt. And it was tough to see what exactly you were going to get for a full 16-game sample size. My biggest worry about him is not his ability to play, because when he's out there, he can play. My biggest fear for him is, can he put on some size and can he be healthy? Because being a safety out there, it's already tough enough because you have to be a physical player. Being a small player at safety is even tougher. And Andrew Makuba, relative NFL standards, small guy. And then obviously the other safety, Marcus Epps, is probably one of the biggest question marks of the Philadelphia Eagles offseason thus far. Again, we're hearing talk about them potentially going after another safety at some point. But Marcus Epps was pretty solid for us last season, especially once, we had Reed Blankenship go down for a little bit. And then we had Andrew Makuba go down. He came in, got some reps in there, and didn't play bad. Okay, so he knows the scheme. He's a smart player, veteran player. Again, not a bad acquisition per se, but it's just one of those things you're like, okay, you could slot him in as a starter, but we could always make an upgrade at safety, right? So this elite defense, ladies and gentlemen, I just kind of, just said it. This defense could be elite. And without further ado, this coaching staff is going to be one of the reasons why. Vic Fangio is the architect of this defense with Clint Hurtt as defensive line coach. We know the big fella knows what he's doing there. Bobby King, an elite linebacker coach. He's proven it since he's come to Philadelphia. And then shout out to Mike Pellegrino. He went to Connect Quad High School, the high school that I went to out in Long Island. So shout out to Mike Pellegrino. congratulations on getting that job. He's the defensive backs coach here in Philadelphia. Now, he's got a good crew over there with Cooper Dejean, Quinyon Mitchell, and Tariq Woolen. So there's really not much coaching per se that he's going to have to do with those guys other than just like helping them be a little bit of a smarter player out there. Can he make some impact at safety? I hope so. I think he can make some impact for a guy like Andrew Makuba, understanding angles and stuff like that. He does come from New England in terms of his coaching tree. He did have a coaching stint in Buffalo. Was a hell of a football player back in high school. Led the Connecticut T-Birds to a Long Island championship. He was the bell cow of that unit, and a superstar lacrosse player. So he has a little bit of it. So he's like an athlete. Like he understands the language. He understands how to talk to these guys. And hell of a player he was back in high school. And being able to translate that at the NFL level to these guys who are young, I think it's going to be it's an important thing to be able to have a coach who is able to relate to guys at that level. And the defensive back room, as we saw earlier, is relatively young. Cooper Dejean, Quinyon Mitchell, Tariq Woolen, all of these guys are under 20. Andrew Makuba, under 20. 25, 26, I should say, right? Marcus Epps is a little bit older, but still, it's a relatively young room here. And having a coaching staff like this, veteran guys who've done it before, and then also mixing in some youth, I think it's an important thing. It helps build balance and it helps build consistency in language and coaching and culture in the long run. So, like I said, there's not many question marks to me on the defense. I think it's going to be a top 10 unit, potentially a top 5 unit, especially if they all stay healthy. If these guys are healthy and they're playing, up to their potential, I mean, by themselves, that defense could probably win you 8 to 9 games. And it's just a matter of whether or not you think the offense can pick up their slack here. And I think it's going to be a process. Like I said, I think it's going to be a struggle early on. But if Jalen Hurts is able to pick it up the way I believe he can, let's see what this team can do by the time they get to the playoffs. Because if they get a running game going and Jalen Hurts is playing clean and he's able to throw the ball at least all over the yard in terms of getting other guys involved, and he's functioning the offense at a high level in terms of being quick with his decision-making, being effective with his decision-making, and being smart with the ball. Like I said, there's not many teams in the NFC that are going to be better than Philadelphia. You got to look, you tip your cap to the Rams, you tip your cap to the Niners potentially, although they, you never know with the Niners. Tip your cap to Seattle, obviously. Dallas looking pretty good this offseason, but again, division rival, you never know. Again, outside of that, Detroit, obviously, but really there's no other team, in my opinion, that scares me as a Philadelphia Eagles fan. There's too much talent here. So, again, let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below about this team. Like I said, I think overall, based on the schedule, we've talked about this in the past, I think we're about 9 to 10 wins. And depending on how good the NFC East is, which I think it'll be better, it might just be enough to get it to a wild card slot. And if we get to the wild card slot with Jalen Hurts playing clean ball, Saquon is running the ball effectively, and the offense just looks like it's flowing, I have no doubt about this defense. If the offense looks like that in big moments, I trust Jalen Hurts. I trust Nick Sirianni. I trust this offense. I trust the players on this team. There's not going to be many teams that want to play Philadelphia if they're hitting their stride. And that's really going to be the biggest question mark as the season goes on after their bye week in week 10. Because by then, that's when you'll know what you have in terms of a unit. So yeah, forgive me this is a little bit of a longer episode of the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. And let me know what your expectations are for this football team. Because it's a very, very important year. It's a make or break season, in my opinion. I think for Jalen Hurts, it's more important than anybody else. Again, if he comes out and proves that he can run this offense, you got a good problem on your hands if you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan and if you're a Philadelphia Eagles front office member. So, again, 9 to 10 wins is my projection. What say you? Let me know, and we'll see you back here next time at the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. Hey, thank you so much for getting through this episode of the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. If you want more content just like this, hit the subscribe button below to lock in with me. Thank you so much for your support on the opposite side of the camera, and check us out on other platforms in the description box below. And we'll see you back here next time for the next episode of the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast.